una mala memoria es, digamos, por un lado, una mala memoria es no recordar bien. Uno tiene mala memoria, no se acuerda de las cosas. Y por otro, una mala memoria es una memoria de cuando te daban una paliza o cuando algo violento, tenés una memoria de algo malo, una mala memoria, con un mal recuerdo. Lo opuesto, una buena memoria es cuando uno recuerda todo. O una memoria de algo positivo, y el momento del colegio fue algo muy positivo para nosotros.
The only reason that we've had to remake this work is because unfortunately it arrived damaged. So usually when we acquire a work into the collection, it arrives and the conservators check it and it goes straight into the collection. And it's very rare that there's actually a problem in that process. But it is an extremely fragile material that he's printing onto, so it's difficult. So the surface can be scratched very easily, and particularly because he's writing on top of a fragile surface, the crayon can then flake off and smudge onto other areas of the photograph. So really we have to be very careful transporting it from here back to Tate. I think it's fairly...
Yeah, it's fairly robust. Yeah, fairly robust. Yeah. No, I've got to cover these things.
So we can brush it. Yeah.
This paper's a little harder than... Yeah, I think it's a bit...
You know, this will, if you scratch the blacks, it will scratch. Yeah. But I've done a lot of work on this, and it's fairly stable. Yeah.
The class picture is an icon that it's something that everybody somehow has. Claudio. Claudio used to say that the ends determine the means. One day, when the fascists came to the door of the school, he confronted them with his fists, and they split his head open. His weapons were always smaller caliber, until they killed him. The writing on the class picture was something totally instinctive. It came like a gesture. I knew there was going to be an event in the school. I had this large image of my class and said, okay, let's do something about it. And I sat down, and in 2 hours, I had written the whole story. I mean, the stories I had heard from my classmates in our meeting, and the reflections I had about who were missing and what was happening with our generation. Just, it's like an accident. You are lucky enough to survive, or you're not. And that's somehow shown in the picture because, well, there are few survivors, there are others are not. And you cannot anticipate that. I believe that the fact that the picture remained alive for a while and it's shown and it's quoted and cited and means that it's like one of the most important ideas I had. I mean, in fact, an artwork is like just a developed idea, something that you think of, okay, let's make it, and becomes materialized. But it grows from an idea. And the idea was the need to transmit to the new generation what had happened to ours. The idea was the need to communicate to younger students, to younger people from a generation that hadn't lived the dictatorship and was not even alive when our classmates or our friends were killed, how emotionally that is, I mean, what is the emotional side of it? Where the emotion lies in our history, and how to transmit that not as a narrative, not as a story, but as something visually emotional, something that combines the image of somebody that could be you with a text that is a short story of something that can happen to you. Therefore, there is an identification. And the identification produces understanding, produces comprehension. I mean, when there is emotion and identification, you understand more the story. You understand, you go into the emotional side of it, and it becomes something you have learned. You have understood what really the dictatorship meant to the generation that suffered it. And therefore, it's an experience that can be transmitted. Martin. Martin was the best friend I ever had. I always loved him since we prepared the entrance exam for the Colegio Nacional de Buenos Aires. We met at Alessio's, Alessio who smoked non-stop. By chance, we wound up in the same division. I still dream of him often, and it has been 20 years since they took him away. When the picture was in the school, students would stay 10, 15 minutes reading all these texts and thinking about themselves. The art piece is not only talking about what happened to us, it's talking about themselves, what they will do, what they could have been, then what they will eventually be. Because in fact, the expectations, the illusions of the people of 14, 15-year-old are the same, no matter what time they're living in. And particularly, if we're all in the same school, in the same place, there is something that makes it identifiable. We could be each other. We are part of some sort of brotherhood, of some sort of identity. And at the same time, the generation, the preceding generation, my generation, was directly affected. I mean, it is the brotherhood that lost many of its members due to state terror. Okay.
Well done.
Where's it?
I need to make a phone call because they're asking me lots of questions, and I think it's better if they just call up.
Well, let's do that. Me parece interesante que en el debate visual y artístico el tema de la desaparición y el tema de la historia política de América Latina y de Argentina en particular, y dentro de eso la de mis propios amigos, mi propio colegio, como una referencia concreta que permite generalizar y llevar a el tema de nuestros desaparecidos de alguna manera a un asunto universal, creo que el hecho que Ten Take, donde hay muchas otras obras de muchos otros artistas que hablan de muchos otros temas, trae no solamente la obra en sí y la forma de trabajar la imagen como lenguaje y como relación entre palabra e imagen desde el punto de vista de estilo, sino que trae la problemática de la desaparición y su representación, que es un tema central en la discusión del arte contemporáneo en América Latina, y por lo tanto me parece muy bueno que la Tate lo haya tomado como parte de esa discusión y eventualmente lo incorpore en sus colecciones o en sus exposiciones.